Hello, welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 12th September 2019. The news to be discussed has been presented on the screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So, let's start our today's discussion. The first news appears on page number 5. It says National Commission on Scheduled Tribes recommends tribal area status for the newly created Union Territory of Ladakh. It says that it will help in democratic devolution of powers, preserve and promote culture. Now, this topic in your prelims examination forms a part of Indian polity and governance, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically with respect to provisions of the Indian Constitution as well as devolution of power and finances up to local levels, including the challenges. The National Commission for Scheduled Tribes has said that the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution provides for administration of tribal areas after setting up of autonomous districts as well as regional councils as provided under the 6th schedule to the Indian Constitution. The Commission has said that providing the status of tribal area to the Union Territory of Ladakh will provide for democratic devolution of powers in the Union Territory. It will help in preserving and promoting the distinct culture of the region. It will help in protecting agrarian rights, including rights on land, as well as it will also enhance the transfer of funds for the speedy development of the entire region of Union Territory of Ladakh. The recommendation for tribal area status to the region has been made on growing demand from a predominantly tribal population of the area, along with the political leaders of Ladakh who are also claiming for the same. Now, Ministry of Home Affairs is the central authority to declare an area as tribal area under the 6th schedule. So accordingly, the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe has written to the Ministry of Home Affairs in order to accord the tribal area status to the newly created Union Territory of Ladakh. So on this backdrop, let us learn certain basics with respect to 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution as well as about National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Now, as you can see, the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution provides for administration of tribal areas in the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, as well as Mizoram. Further, the 6th schedule also provides for creation of an autonomous district as well as an autonomous region by the governor. Now, if there are different scheduled tribes in an autonomous districts of these states, then the governor may divide the area or areas inhabited by these different scheduled tribes into autonomous regions. So if an area or number of areas are inhabited by, say, different scheduled tribes, then these different areas can be demarcated or divided as autonomous region by the governor. Now, with respect to these autonomous regions and autonomous districts, the governor is also empowered to either include or exclude any area, increase, decrease, or diminish an area, unite two districts or regions, as well as to alter the names and boundaries of these autonomous districts and regions. Now, another important point is that the 6th schedule also provides for constitution of a district council as well as a regional council. Now, these district councils shall consist of not more than 30 members, of which 4 members or 4 persons shall be nominated by the governor, and the remaining people shall be elected on the basis of adult suffrage. Now, this has been provided with respect to the district councils. The 6th schedule further says that there shall be a separate regional council for each area constituted as an autonomous region. Now, since the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe has recommended for tribal area status for Ladakh, let us also understand about the concept of tribal area as provided in the 6th schedule to the Indian Constitution. Now, paragraph 20 of the 6th schedule talks about tribal areas. It says that these areas are specified in parts 1, 2, 2a and part 3 of the table below and shall respectively be the tribal areas within the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. These tribal areas as provided under different tables are the North Kachar Hills District, the Karbi Anglon Districts, the Bodoland Territories Areas District, Khasi Hills District, Jaintia Hills District, the Garo Hills District, Tripura Tribal Areas District, the Chakma District, the Mara District, as well as the Lai District. Now, these are the important points which you must remember under 6th schedule from your UPSC point of view. Now, after understanding about 6th schedule, let us also understand certain basics with respect to National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. The National Commission for Scheduled Tribe was established by amending Article 338 of the Indian Constitution and inserting a new article, that is Article 338A by Constitution 89th Amendment. Now, Article 338A says that there shall be a commission for the scheduled tribes to be known as National Commission for the Scheduled Tribes. The National Commission for Scheduled Tribe shall consist of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and 3 other members. The Constitution further highlights that the chairperson, vice chairperson, and other members of the commission shall be appointed by the President of India by warrant under his hand and seal. So, all these people shall be appointed by the President of India. Further, the term of office of the chairperson, vice chairperson, and other members of the commission shall be 3 years from the date of assumption of charge. Now, the chairperson has been given the rank of Union Cabinet Minister, the vice chairperson has been given the rank of Minister of State, and the members have been given the rank of Secretary to the Government of India. Now, the Constitution further says that the President shall cause all such reports of National Commission for Scheduled Tribe to be laid before each House of Parliament along with an explanation. Now, important functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe includes investigation as well as monitoring of matters relating to safeguards provided for scheduled tribes under the Indian Constitution or under any other law. The Commission shall also inquire into specific complaints relating to rights and safeguards of scheduled tribes. Further, the Commission also participates as well as advises in the planning process relating to their socio-economic development of these scheduled tribes. And the Commission also evaluates the progress of their social and economic development. The Commission also submits an annual report to the President with respect to safeguards, measures required for effective implementation of programs or schemes relating to the socio-economic welfare and development of scheduled tribes. So these are some of the important functions of National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. Some of the other important functions with respect to protection, welfare and development as well as advancement of the scheduled tribes include measures required to confer ownership rights with respect to minor forest produce to these scheduled tribes living in forest areas. Measures need to be taken to safeguard rights to the tribal communities over mineral resources, water resources, etc. as per the law of the land. Measures to be taken for their development along with to work for more viable livelihood strategies for scheduled tribes. Measures which needs to be taken to improve relief and rehabilitation measures for these tribal groups who are displaced by various developmental projects. Measures to be taken to prevent alienation of tribal people from their land and also to rehabilitate such people whose alienation from their land has taken place. Further, measures to be taken for their cooperation along with involvement of these tribal communities with respect to protection of forest and also to undertake social afforestation programs. And lastly, measures to be taken to ensure full implementation of provisions of Panchayats extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996. So these are also some of the important functions of National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. So in this news analysis, we understood about important aspects of 6th schedule to the Indian Constitution and also about National Commission for Scheduled Tribes along with its various functions. The next news appears on page number 12. It says, 2 anti-lynching bills being currently examined by the central government. These bills were passed by the government of Rajasthan and the state government of West Bengal. Rajasthan has passed the Rajasthan Protection from Lynching Bill 2019 and the West Bengal has passed the West Bengal Prevention of Lynching Bill 2019. Now these two bills are being currently examined by Ministry of Home Affairs. Now these bills, once examined by the Home Ministry, will become a law after it is assented to by the President. Now the Rajasthan Protection from Lynching Bill 2019 provides for a life imprisonment as well as fine from Rs 1 lakh to 5 lakhs in case of those convicted for mob lynching which has led to the death of the victim. Now the West Bengal Prevention of Lynching Bill 2019 proposes a jail of 3 years or up to life imprisonment for those involved in assaulting and injuring the person. Further, the West Bengal Prevention of Lynching Bill 2019 also defines lynching as well as mob and also provides for a West Bengal lynching compensation scheme for those who are victims of mob lynching. Now, this topic in your prelims examination forms a part of Indian polity and governance, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically with respect to Indian constitution and functions and responsibilities of union and the states. So the question is that why is the central government examining these bills passed by the state legislature, in this case the state of Rajasthan and West Bengal. Now the state laws are examined by the central government on three angles. First, it is being checked whether these state laws are repugnant or inconsistent with the central laws. Further, whether these state laws are deviated from national or central policy, and also to check their legal and constitutional validity. So these are the three main points on which these state bills are currently being checked by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now Article 254 of the Indian Constitution provides for inconsistency between laws made by Parliament and laws made by the state legislatures. Now let us understand the provision of Article 254 through this particular example. Now the rectangle in red color represents the central laws, the rectangle in blue color represents the state laws, and the area highlighted or denoted in yellow in color represents those part of the state laws which are inconsistent with the central law. Now provision of Article 254 states that if law made by the state government is inconsistent or repugnant to any of the provision made by the central law, or that is the parliament, then law made by the central government shall prevail, and law made by the state to the extent of inconsistency be void. So in this case, the part of the law of state denoted in yellow in color shall be void to the point they are inconsistent with the central law, and this area of the state law shall be valid. Now another provision of Article 254 states that if a state government has made any law from the concurrent list of 7th schedule, and any provision of law made by the state from concurrent list, if it is inconsistent with the central law, then the law made by the state legislator or the state government shall prevail if it has been reserved for the President's consideration and has also received President's assent. Then in such situation, such state law shall prevail. So it basically provides for two conditions. First, if a state law is inconsistent with the central law, then such part of the state law which is inconsistent with the central law shall be void to the extent of its inconsistency. And second part of Article 254 says that if a state has made any law from concurrent list and any provision of state law is inconsistent with the central law, then law made by the state legislature shall prevail even to the extent of the inconsistency if it has received the President's assent. So there are two situations here presented in Article 254. However, the Parliament is still empowered to make any law which may further repeal these state laws which are repugnant or inconsistent with the central law. So these are the provisions provided under Article 254 of the Indian Constitution, which you must know with respect to this particular news. Since this is a news in transition, so let's wait whether the President finally gives his assent to these two bills proposed against lynching by the state government of Rajasthan and West Bengal. The next news appears in the article section on page number 11. It says, a case for a differential global carbon tax. All nations must climb down the emission ladder without giving up on their standard of living. Now this topic of global carbon tax in your prelims examination becomes a part of general issues of environmental ecology and climate change, and your mains gets covered under GS paper 3, specifically with respect to environmental pollution and degradation. So in this article, the authors are putting a case for a differential global carbon tax which is just in nature. Now the article has mentioned that climate change is a global problem, and such a global problem needs a global solution. The most recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report says that the total global emissions will need to be fall by 45% from 2010 level to 2030 and must reach net zero by the year 2050. And this is necessary, that is to reach the target of net zero by 2050 if we have to sustain in the fight against global warming. The authors in this article have stated that historically the global south have contributed less with respect to climate change as compared to global north. And this can be seen with respect to the per capita carbon emission of both global south and global north, where the per capita emission of global south has been historically low, and even today as compared to global north, the per capita carbon emission of global south is still lower than the global north. Now the term global south is an emerging term used by World Bank, and it is done to refer to countries located in Asia, Africa, Latin America as well as Caribbean, and it is considered to have low and middle class income, that is they are comparatively less developed as compared to the global north, which is highly developed. So this article states that all countries, including the countries of global south as well as the countries of global north, irrespective of their contributions to climate change, must join hands to mitigate this entire problem. However, the sharing of burden to limit climate change must be proportionate between global south and global north. So it is in this aspect the authors in this article have recommended for just energy transition, that is JET, and this concept is based on a sense of global justice in terms of climate fallout as well as respective contributions by different countries. Further, the concept of just energy transition will also help the resource poor developing countries in order to make energy transition without worrying about their finance. So it is in this aspect this article have highlighted this concept of just energy transition. So this article highlights about correcting historical injustices, where the first point mentioned is with respect to changing the priority of energy infrastructure. That is, changing the energy infrastructure from conventional uses of energy to renewable uses of energy. However, this requires massive investment with respect to green energy programs across the world. So the question remains how to finance this green energy infrastructure. Now, this climate injustice funnel shows that how the income level of countries as well as their emission level is inversely related. So the authors in this article have suggested that those countries who are at the top of the funnel, apart from funding their own energy transition, they shall also support other countries which are at the bottom of the funnel in order to support their energy transition from conventional energy to renewable energy. So this basically means that high income countries should share their financial burden of low income countries with respect to energy transition from conventional energy to the use of renewable energy. And this will be done via global carbon tax. So here let us understand about this global carbon tax. Now, global carbon tax, the article says that for a successful energy transition, that is from conventional to renewable energy, the countries have to spend roughly around 1.5% of their GDP. And for this global energy transition should be financed through a system of global carbon tax. Now this article says that since the total global carbon emissions are 36.1 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide, this amounts to a global carbon tax of $46.1 per metric ton. So now the question remains that how this global carbon tax be fixed with respect to different countries. Now with respect to fixing carbon tax, the authors in this article have suggested to take global average of carbon emission as the benchmark. As you can see that global average of carbon emission is 4.97 metric ton per capita. So there are two kind of countries. One kind of countries which is above this global average of carbon emission, and such countries whose carbon emission is more than the global average is termed as payers as per the author, and such countries whose carbon emission is below the global average of 4.97 metric ton per capita is termed as beneficiary countries. So it says that countries which emit more than the global per capita average should not only pay for their own transition from conventional to renewable, but should also fund part of those countries who are below the global average. So according to the author, 68 countries are emitting above the global average of carbon emission, and 135 countries in the category of beneficiaries are emitting below the global average of carbon emission. Further, the proportion of amount which is to be paid or received will be based on distance from the global average, that is either more distance or less distance from the global average, and also will be controlled for their population size. So in this aspect, this article says that the top two payer countries in terms of absolute amounts of transfers are United States and China. And in terms of compensated countries or in terms of beneficiary countries, India comes at the top due to its population size and its distance from global emissions average. Now, India's per capita emission is 1.73 metric ton, which is way below the global average of carbon emission, which is 4.97 metric ton per capita. So, on this account, India comes at the top with respect to beneficiary countries because of its population size as well as its distance from the global emissions average. Now, this article further highlights that most of the countries in the beneficiary list are from the global south. However, the countries in the beneficiary sector also include some of the developed countries like France, Sweden, as well as Switzerland. So, inclusion of countries like France, Sweden, and Switzerland, which are generally a part of global north or developed countries, as a part of or a member of beneficiary shows that this policy is just, because even these countries are developed, they are in the category of beneficiaries because their per capita emissions are low. So effectively in this article, global average of carbon emission has been taken as the norm, and countries whose emissions are above the global average shall not only pay for their own transition from conventional to renewable, but should also fund a part of those countries who are below the global average. And in this case, India's per capita emission is 1.73 metric ton, which is way below the global average of 4.97 metric ton per capita. Thus, this article becomes important from your mains perspective. The next news appears on page number 12. It says, Mamta assuages fear on Deocha coal block. Work only after rehabilitation. This news highlights that the Chief Minister of West Bengal has stated that work on the Deocha Pachami coal mine will start only after completing the rehabilitation of people living in the region. Deocha Pachami coal mine is situated in Birbhum district of West Bengal, and it is considered to be Asia's largest and world's second largest coal block. And it has an estimated reserve of 2.1 billion tons of coal. Now the problem is that almost 5% of the project land is covered with forest, and the development of the project may lead to displacement of people, 40% of whom are tribals of the region. So the Chief Minister has said that work on the Deocha Pachami coal block would only start after completing rehabilitation of people, including tribals who constitute 40% of the region. So in this aspect, the state government of West Bengal has stated that exploration and mining in these coal blocks will only start when people living in the region, including the tribals, are rehabilitated. Now from your examination perspective, you must remember the area of Deocha Pachami coal block, as it is not only Asia's largest coal block but also world's second largest coal block and has an estimated coal reserve of 2.1 billion tons. Now from your prelims point of view, this topic forms a part of current events of national importance. And you must also remember the area of Deocha Pachami coal block in a map, as it lies in the Birbhum district of West Bengal. The next news appears on page number 22. It says, C. Boreas is the largest flying animal of all time, reveals a study of London. Now this news highlights that scientists have unveiled a new species of pterosaur, which are plane-sized reptiles which flew over the sky. This largest flying animal, that is C. Boreas, was a contemporary of T-Rex, Triceratops and other dinosaurs who lived in the Cretaceous era. So basically C. Boreas was found in the Cretaceous era. Now C. Boreas stands for Cryodracon boreas, and this, as per researchers, had a wingspan of 10 meter and weighed 250 kilogram and rivaled another pterosaur as the largest flying animal of all time. Now, the remains of this C. boreas were discovered in Alberta in Canada 30 years ago, but because of certain miscalculation, it was not being able to identify it. However, a closer look at the fossil remains of the juvenile as well as the intact giant bone of a full grown specimen left no doubt to the researchers that a new species had been discovered, and this species was the largest flying animal of all time. Now, this species, that is C. boreas, like other winged reptiles, lived at the same time about 77 million years ago. Researchers have found that C. boreas was probably carnivorous and probably fed on lizards, small mammals, and even baby dinosaurs. Now, as per the scientists, despite their large size and wide distribution across North and South America, Asia, as well as Europe, only fragmentary remains so far have been found, and this makes the new species extremely important. So, from our examination perspective, you must know about C. boreas, that recently it has been unearthed and a new species have been found, which reveals that it is the largest flying animal of all time. From your examination perspective, this topic becomes a part of general issues on environment as well as current events of international importance. Now, this diagram highlights geological time with major evolutionary events in the fossil records. Now, it talks about three eras: Cenozoic, Mesozoic, and Paleozoic. Now, Cretaceous period formed a part of Mesozoic era, and this becomes important from your examination perspective. Further, Paleozoic era comprised of Permian period, Carboniferous period, Devonian period, along with Ordovician and Cambrian period. So these different periods along with the eras becomes important as these are major events in geological history of time. So in this note, you must remember that Cretaceous period was a part of Mesozoic era. So these again becomes important from your prelims perspective. Now the next news appears in brief on page number 9. It says Defense Research Development Organization has successfully tested the indigenously developed man-portable anti-tank guided missile, that is MPA-TGM, and this has been done in Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. As per the Defense Ministry, it was the third series of successful testing of MPA-TGM. So on this note, let us go through some of the important aspects of man-portable anti-tank guided missile. Now this is the third generation anti-tank guided missile developed by Defense Research Development Organization. Further, it says that it has been developed indigenously by DRDO in partnership with WEM Technologies Limited, and it comes with a high explosive anti-tank heat warhead. So heat here stands for high explosive anti-tank warhead. It further states about its range and capability. It says that strike range of this missile is 2.5 km and weighs around 14.5 kg, as this weight is critical to maintain its man portability. Another important point is that it has the capability to be fired from the shoulder of a person and can be used even during day as well as in the night. Further, this missile works on the principle of fire and forget and has a deadly impact against both moving and stationary targets. So in this note, this man-portable anti-tank guided missile shall be deployed in infantry and parachute battalions of the Indian Army. Now from your prelims perspective, you must know these basic features about man-portable anti-tank guided missile, which has been successfully test fired in Andhra Pradesh in Kurnool. Now after our discussion, these forms your practice question for the day. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. Question number 1, it says, consider the following statements. The slow process of conversion of dead vegetation into coal is known as carbonization. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, coal is processed in industry to get coke, coal tar and coal gas. Yes, the statement is also correct. Third, bituminous coal is a soft coal, whereas anthracite has the highest carbon content. Now the first part of the third statement is incorrect, as bituminous coal is not a soft coal whereas it is a hard coal, whereas lignite is considered as a soft coal. So the third statement becomes incorrect. So here the correct answer becomes B, that is 1 and 2 only. Moving on to question number 2, it says, consider the following statements about 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. First, all members of district council are nominated by the governor. No, the statement is incorrect, as a district council shall have not more than 30 members, out of which only 4 members are to be nominated by the governor and the rest are to be elected on the basis of adult suffrage. So the first statement is incorrect. Second, governor is empowered to alter the name and size of autonomous districts and autonomous regions. Yes, this statement is correct. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? So here the correct answer is B, that is 2 only. Moving on to question number 3. It says, consider the following statements about National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. First, it was added in the Indian Constitution by Constitution 73rd Amendment. No, the statement is incorrect, as it was added by Constitution 89th Amendment. Second, the chairperson, vice chairperson and members of National Commission for Scheduled Tribes are appointed by the Prime Minister of India. No, the statement is also incorrect, as they are appointed by the President of India. Third, the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe has power to investigate and monitor matters related to safeguards provided for scheduled tribes under Indian Constitution and other laws under the government. Yes, the statement is correct. So in this, the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? So here the correct answer is A, that is 3 only. Question number 4, it says, consider the following statements. First, the term Global South is used by World Bank to refer countries located in Asia, Latin America, Africa and Caribbean. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, historically, Global South has contributed more to carbon emissions and has contributed more to the problems of climate change. No, this statement is incorrect, as historically it is the Global North which has contributed more to carbon emissions as well as problems of climate change. So here in this, the correct answer is A, that is 1 only. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.